Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon 12 Martin.
And I'm Patrick 13 Guerra.
And Patrick, yes, today we are going to review the first volume of the final season of Stranger Things. And right up front, I'm going to tell our audience our patrons are getting this episode early, so you will definitely need this warning, but everyone else is going to get this our normal release schedule. We are full spoilers throughout the entire episode. Why are we doing that? Because Stranger Things is such a pop culture phenomenon. By the time we release this episode to the general public, it's going to be a week out. I'm promising you by then you've probably had everything spoiled for you already if you haven't, because social media I went online last night. The episodes had barely been out for 4 hours and there was like 9 million articles on Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Entertainment Weekly, all with like the closest you could come to spoiler full headlines. And I'm like, good Lord, like give people like a day to watch it. So just be aware, we are going full spoilers from this moment forward. So if you haven't seen Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1, be forewarned.
Yes, Damon. The warning. Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1, released in November of 2025, starring the likes of Priya Ferguson as Erica, Sadie Sink as Max, Noah Schnapp as Will, Joe Keery as Steve, Charlie Heaton as Jonathan, Natalie Dyer as Nancy, Caleb McLaughlin as Lucas, Gaten Matarazzo as Dustin, Millie Bobby Brown as 11, Finn Wolfhard as Mike, David Harbour as Jim Hopper, and the great Winona Ryder as Joyce Byers. Damon, Stranger Things is back. And we've been waiting a long time for it, to the point that when we open up our first episode in high school, I was shocked to see these 30-year-olds running around. I thought we were watching like Beverly Hills 90210. I was like, everybody's got 5 o'clock shadows and crow's feet around their eyes. But damn it, we're gonna finish this story, Damon. We're gonna finish this story. We're not gonna do a huge time jump. These kids are gonna figure this shit out right here, right now. Stranger Things is back. Damon, I know this is a big show for you. I loved the first season. Everything since then has been sort of hit or miss for me. I thought season 4 was phenomenal. I thought that was like a return to form for the show. In fact, I thought it was like almost a new shape for the show where I was like, oh, this is actually scary. There's actual stakes. There's actually something going on. But for a Damon Martin who has really loved pretty much the whole thing, how do you rank right away? How do you feel about Stranger Things season 5, volume 1?
So I'm going to be upfront and honest about this when I give you this answer, because yes, I am a massive Stranger Things fan because it scratches the perfect itch for me when it comes to my 80s nostalgia. I grew up, we always talk about we grew up in the 80s. We both really grew up in the 90s. We were kids in the 80s.
Yeah,
Like
children. Yeah.
we were not in our formative years of like really discovering who, like I didn't discover that I was a huge fan of like Nirvana and Pearl Jam until the 90s. Like that's when my music revolution took
Yeah.
place when
Oh,
I was a
yeah.
teenager. So we always talk about being children of the 80s, but there is some truth to that because that's where I first watched Nightmare on Elm Street and fell in love with horror and lots of things like that. So when I say it scratches that nostalgia itch, it's also more about just I love the 80s. I grew up in, like, when I was a child, I was in the 80s, and I just remember that's like my first memories as a kid is growing up in the 80s.
That's
Um,
why I loved the first season because it was like I was that. Oh, I was probably a little younger than those kids in that first season, so there was a lot of relatability there.
Yeah. So I'm and remember we're recording this basically the day after the show debuted, so we're still very very fresh. Like we haven't had like a week to digest what we just saw or rewatch it or anything like that. This is a one time viewing. We're talking less than 24 hours later, and I have to temper my review a little bit in this regard, and I'll give you an example why. When I first saw the last couple episodes of Game of Thrones, which was another show I was utterly obsessed with.
Same.
I was like, oh man, it's over. What a tremendous, like, it's over. And I was almost defending the finale because I'm just like, this was always their vision. This is what George R. R. Martin wanted. Like, you can't really complain, blah blah blah. And I think I was just too deep into it to really give a critical analysis of that show, because as I watched it a couple more times and time passed, I was like, you know what? I really hated that finale. I really hated the way that show ended. And I think there's a certain, like, if you go back and, like, they're out there, you can read them on the internet. There's reviews of all the Star Wars sequels. And I actually gave a pretty glowing review to both uh, Force Awakens and even The Last Jedi, which is a movie you
Oh,
know I now hate. But I think it's because I was so immersed in the nostalgia of just being a huge Star Wars fan my entire life. So there is a
yeah.
danger there, is what I'm getting at. So I'm going to give you as much as I can as my unabashed opinion. Also, putting it right up front that I love this show and I love what it represents, and I love that it's like one of the few, like, what we call water cooler television shows out there where it feels like everyone watches it, everyone wants to have a discussion about it. We all have to tune in. Like, Netflix crashed briefly last night when it debuted because as 300 million subscribers on Netflix, you feel like half of them tuned in to watch the beginning of the final season
Yeah.
of Stranger Things. So what I'm getting at is, like, I love this show and I love what it is, and I just love the nostalgia of it all. I love the characters, and I'm going to do my absolute level best to give you my full criticism of the things I liked and didn't like in this show. But I'm admitting up front, it's hard for me to judge because I just don't have enough time to reflect. And by the way, that's like, why don't you wait a week or two to review this? Well, we're timely. We have to be timely, and we have to, we have to, like,
Yeah.
there are rare occasions. Like, I saw Nosferatu twice before I reviewed that. Didn't like it either time, but I did watch it twice. There just wasn't time to do it here. So I will rewatch the episodes at some point, probably before the next installment drops on Christmas Day. But I'm just giving you that up front. I do love this show. I love what it represents, but I am a little in the weeds. I fully admit it.
And I will say conversely that I'm going to temper my rage and disappointment for the first volume of Stranger Things season 5, because I also know that, television shows, just as a business model, have to string you along. So if my frustrations are like not enough happened for me in these first 4 episodes, I understand that, like, they are literally trying to drag it out to the end of the year. That's actually the point. You can't just rush to the thing. So I have to understand that too. And two, like, there's just things about the show that have always frustrated me, and they are ever present in volume 1 of season 5. But I realize we are actually entering the end game finally. So maybe some of those things are going to be rectified in the next volume or in the finale. One of those things. So I will try not to hate on this show too hard. I didn't, by the way, didn't hate this volume of it. I just, some of the glaring issues that I've always had with the show were on full display in this volume. So I'm just like, okay, yes. I think I also have to remember I'm a curmudgeon. I'm a Scrooge. When everyone else loves something, I seem to not. And I promise I don't try to be a contrarian, never on purpose, never. I always try to evaluate everything cleanly. But this show has never rubbed me the right way outside of the first season. The very first season, I was like, wow, I really, really like this. This is really something that I think is great. And it did remind me of being a little kid in the 1980s. So there was that nostalgia factor. I thought it was well made. I thought the story was well done. And then season 2 and season 3, in my opinions, were completely off the rails. They really did feel like, and were, sort of just a way to capitalize on the popularity of the first season. Because, Damon, and you know this by now, the Duffer Brothers, when they originally conceived Stranger Things, they basically conceived it chapter 1, chapter 2. I mean, I read the Bible that was Stranger Things, right? If you don't know, show Bibles basically have the entire series laid out, all of the characters explained, who they are, their motivations, etc. I read that Bible. That Bible's available out there, and I think it's called Montauk, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right.
If you read that, it will look and seem and sound very familiar, because they were essentially ripping off it. They were ripping off it, and they were ripping off sort of the aesthetics of the 1980s Steven Spielberg movies like E.T. Or The Goonies or Back to the Future. They wanted to just capture that, but they wanted to basically siphon it through that. And that's what they were doing. They were like, cool, we'll do that. They actually only ever had 2 ideas planned. The season that you saw, and then a season where they're all grown up and they come back to Hawkins, and they explore what happened when they were kids and why Will went missing. And it really read, I was like, oh my God, they don't really have a big idea here. They have it here, just repackaged. But then it became a smash success for Netflix. And Netflix was like, you Duffer Brothers need to figure out how to make these kids that we have right here, the Millie Bobby Browns, the Finn Wolfhards, the Noah Schnaps, you need to get these kids back in on set ASAP. And by the way, great problem to have. And congratulations to the Duffer Brothers. That's like the dream in Hollywood. And so they had to sit down and create more of a story. And really, they got completely away from the Bible because they had to adjust. They had to pivot. It happens all the time in Hollywood. Nothing new there, no problems there at all. And what they've created here is a cultural phenomenon. And you're right, Damon. One of the last water cooler shows that everybody watches. I kind of miss those days. I really feel like Game of Thrones was the last time we had that outside of Stranger Things. And so here we are, Damon, on the precipice of the end. Are you ready for the end? By the way, we'll get to this near the end. I don't think this is the end anyway. Even I know they're like, no, we're done. I don't think they're done. But anyway, Damon, this story, volume one, what are we dealing with?
Well, so let me, and I'm not defending Stranger Things, but I also think I think the trouble with television sometimes is because you have to create so much story across multiple seasons that every show at some point has some struggles getting that story to the finish line. I think everyone, I don't think there's anyone out there that would disagree or that would disagree with the idea that Breaking Bad is one of the 5 or 10 greatest television shows ever made. And I think that that show worked its way into its finale brilliantly, and I think that is one of the best series finales of all time. But I talk to people all the time when they're discovering Breaking Bad by watching it on Netflix or whatever else, and they're like, "Yeah, that first season was kind of boring. I didn't really love it, and I
Yeah.
almost tuned out." And I remember my girlfriend watched it after I'd watched it, and she was kind of like in the same mind. She's like, "I don't really feel this show. That first season was not that great." And I'm like, "I promise you, stick around. Gus Fring is coming." And
Yeah,
she
when
stuck
Gus
around.
Fring shows up, that show's unstoppable.
Yeah, it got better. But every show has that. Like, you and I are both big Sons of Anarchy fans. And I've watched that show all the way through 2 or 3 times. And there are definitely stronger seasons. And I still, to this day, am not totally sold that Kurt Sutter really knew where that show was going into that final season
Yeah.
because there's some questionable decisions along the way. And I love that show. I still love Sons of Anarchy. But there's some moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is really planned. I feel like this is it kind of like happened to you, and so you decide to change it.
Yeah.
I'm sure Stranger Things is very much the same way, and I'm not going to fault them for that. I have read that Bible you're talking about, and I think originally, if I remember correctly, like when they were pitching it, they were also pitching it as the idea of a movie. Like they weren't even pitching it as like a show originally. Like they wanted to make movies, and they weren't sure what they were going to be pitching it as. So
Yeah.
they pitched it, ended up Netflix picked it up, and it's a show. Okay, great. They moved on to make it a show. And by the way, I don't have a problem with that because I just read recently like the Yellow Jackets treatment where they talked about like what they were going to plan to do with the Yellow Jackets, which is a show I like a lot as well. And the years change, the characters, like the way a lot.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's television. You know what I mean? Like they go in with one idea. Here's what we want to do, as you said, very similar to it, and they come out on the other side and make something totally different, and that's fine. That's television. That's honestly what you're supposed to do because you're supposed to go up with a great idea and then you develop it into 10 episodes, 12 episodes, 15 episodes, whatever you're going to do. And you hopefully come up with a correct end game. So where we pick up in Stranger Things season 5, we are months removed from the end of season 4 when 11 defeated, quote unquote, Vecna in the Upside Down, returned home. Everyone got reunited because a big part of if there was a complaint about Stranger Things going from like 3 to 4, it was that all the characters kept getting separated, and they're like, we want our team back together. Like everyone's like they're in Russia and they're on California and somebody's in Hawkins. Like, bring us back together. Like this was a core show about Hawkins, Indiana. Bring it back to Hawkins, Indiana, and they did. So when we pick up with season 5, 11 is training, but she's still wanted by the government because, as we saw at the end of season 4, they believe she has something to do with all the weird shit that's been going on at Hawkins. They don't know the full extent of her powers, her relationship to the Upside Down. And so now everyone is basically on endgame, which is find and kill Vecna. 11 knows she hurt him badly, but she didn't kill him. So they're trying to find him to put it into this whole thing once they figured out that Henry Krill, aka One, aka Vecna, has been the creator and the tormentor of the Upside Down this entire time. And so that's where we pick up at the beginning of season 5 is all of our characters working towards a common goal, find and kill Vecna.
Yes, Damon, find and kill Vecna. And really, I feel like, at least for this volume of Stranger Things, the template that the brothers used, and I guarantee it's come up in some interview, so I'm not pretending like I made this up or I figured this out on my own. It feels like the Great Escape. I mean, quite literally, I could hear dun 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 dun,
I
dun.
mean,
Like
they talk about it in the movie. I mean, they're in the
they even bring it up at one point. I think it was Maya Hawke's character. I always forget her name. Robin.
Robin. Yeah.
I think Robin even brought up the Great Escape at one point. I was like, oh, I was like the Leo DiCaprio meme. I was like, there it is. Like, like I was like, this is giving Great Escape, which is the idea. And you're right. And this was the smart thing to do. Get them all. How do we box them into Hawkins so we don't have to separate them? Quarantine the whole damn town off and they have to live in it together. They can't go anywhere else. They can't go to California. They can't go to Russia. They have to stay right here. They have to be right here. So really the first episode is more about just understanding where everybody is at after the events of the last episode, after the last season. And this is where my frustration, but also I have to give the show enough grace is it has been what 2 years roughly.
3 years, yeah.
It's been 3 years. You're telling me we haven't talked about Stranger Things for 3 years? That's interesting.
I'm pretty sure it's been about 3 years. I think it was what I said. So because this show, unfortunately, this show had to deal with you talk about the
yeah, they get hit by a lot of stuff.
Well, they started in 2016, then they had the pandemic, then they had the writer and actor strike. Like they've just had a lot of weird stuff happen to them to where things have been delayed. Like, and I get it, it's life, but like, yeah, I mean, I just kind of suspend disbelief. Like, oh yeah, I know Finn Wolfhard now has a 5 o'clock shadow, and Millie Bobby Brown literally has a kid. Like she has a kid of her own now. Like,
wait, she does? I clearly don't follow enough Millie Bobby Brown. She has a child.
Her and her husband adopted a child, but it's just like,
oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
but I
so
mean,
she was never pregnant. I was like, I know I didn't miss that.
She's a mom, which is insane to me to think. Like she's a mom now, and she started on the show, and she was a child. So yeah, this show's been going on for a while. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. And no, all that stuff is totally forgivable. Like even the fact that like I remember when I saw Lucas for the first time in the high school, and I was like, he has a man's hairline. I go, he's like a man. Like I'm watching a man play a high schooler. I totally like it was funny, but also I was like, I get it. Like and I think they actually did a great job of just being like, we're going to stick to the plan. The plan is they're in high school. We're not going to jump ahead. We're not going to play any of those games. I even noticed that all the high schoolers in the background were cast older as well. So nothing stuck out. It wasn't like they were playing against 20-year-olds. Like I guarantee you most of the high schoolers were in their 30s and they just looked young. And they were like, that's how we're going to make this world make sense. That's crafty. I actually like that. I actually appreciate that. But yeah, it was more a matter of like, look, we've been away for a while. Let's just reset everybody. For some people, that's totally fine. For me, I'm like, I don't need a reset. I need to move forward. But that's what they do. That first episode is really a reset. You learn just where everybody's heads are at. You learn Steve and God damn it. There's too many names for me, Damon. Steve and Dustin are still Steve and Dustin. And they're still dealing with that bully. They're still dealing with the jocks. The bully jocks are still messing with them. I thought that was going to play out more, and it really doesn't. It just allows it allows Dustin to like disappear for almost an entire episode. And I was like, okay. And I mean that literally never comes back. But I thought that was going to be a thing. But what it did was sort of set a tone when Dustin does reappear. And I know we're jumping around, and Damon, I'll let you like kind of lead the story in general. But because I'm just focusing on kind of like the tone and what's going on in like kind of under the skin of the show. This is an angry season. And I like that, by the way. I'm not mad about that. But when Dustin shows back up and him and Steve are basically at each other's throats, and they've always kind of had this close friendship that is combative, but really at this point it was like, oh, it's not even funny anymore. Nobody's laughing. Nobody's having fun with this because I feel like for them the stakes are that much higher. Now they know they can't fuck around. Everybody's on the same page. And so they're like everybody's a little edgy, everybody's a little angry at each other. And overall, I was like, okay, I get it. But Damon, there was like, I guess, what was in your opinion, like the big thing? I have an opinion on what the big thing to come out of episode one was. What do you think is the big reveal that kind of allows us to have a catalyst to move through the rest of the volume?
Well, it's funny you say that. So I will admit that the opening with Dustin showing up wearing the Hellfire Club T-shirt and the kids basically assaulting him or beating him up or however you want to say it, basically bullying him for still wearing the Hellfire Club T-shirt because he still adores Eddie Munson, who of course was a very popular character and died last season. I like that. I thought that because if you've ever gone through that kind of situation, it doesn't just generally go away. Like kids don't
Right.
mature between junior and senior years. Like they still are assholes if they were assholes a year ago.
And
So
according to those kids, Eddie killed somebody, so they hate Eddie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't mind that, but I agree it was weird. They picked it up and then it just kind of went away in the rest of the 4 episodes. It's just like, oh, we're gonna bully Dust. Okay, I'm fine. And by the way, and once again, this is not me defending the Duffers. I'm just explaining.
Sure.
The Duffer brothers have said because they always wanted to be filmmakers, which played a big part in their reason to leave Netflix and go to Paramount because Paramount's going to allow them to create TV shows, but also create theatrical run movies. That's always been their dream. And so they said that every season of Stranger Things was treated as a movie. So when you get to the end, while yes, there's always like a little cliffhanger or something, the idea is you can watch the full complete season, watch it on its own, and then move on to the next season. And you're not just not everything is just going to have to constantly be pulled through and leaving all these dangling threads outside of obviously the major, not killing the villain or whatever. But I did appreciate that because there's a reason why they call it Stranger Things 5, not Stranger Things Season 5. We call it Season 5 because that's what everyone else calls it. But they actually call it Stranger Things 5 because this is the 5th sequel in their story, basically. And I appreciate the filmmaker attitude towards that. So in this first installment, everyone's you're right, everyone's on edge. And the way I think of it like this, you're in quarantine in a town, which is also, supposed to be a pretty small town in Indiana. I think they said in season 2, it's 100 miles away from Indianapolis, and I'm right next door to Indiana, so I know generally where they're kind of talking about, because I know it takes me about, 2.5 hours, 3 hours to drive to Indianapolis from where I live. So I kind of know where they're talking about. Imagine, this is what I was laughing about. Not that everyone's up and leaving Hawkins every day, but imagine being stuck in a town with all your friends, all your family for months on end, never being able to escape and just go to the mall or anything, or go to a concert or whatever. You'd probably be a little stir crazy. So I kind of feel like everyone's a little stir crazy right now because they want out. Plus, they're just trying to end this upside down shit. So the first episode, is really an establishing episode, which is where we find out Hopper's training 11 to make her stronger, faster, better, to take on the threats that are coming for her and the entire town and I guess the entire world. And they're doing a thing called the crawl, which is basically so the military's come in and quarantined the whole town, and basically Hopper is hijacking his way into the back of one of the supply trucks going into the Upside Down when they do the burn. They burn to reopen the door, and then they travel through it. I guess it's pretty widely stated that they're trying to find Vecna. Everyone's trying to find Vecna. But Hopper goes in on his own every time there's a burn. He goes through with them, kind of sneaks in. By the way, and this is not really a criticism, but they talk about how he sneaks in. Obviously, because we're in full spoilers, Hopper ends up being stuck in the Upside Down. 11 ends up joining him there. I'm still kind of curious, how the fuck did you get out? Did you just jump back on the back of the truck and come back through? I always thought that was kind of weird that, he jumps on the truck to get in. Does he just, look and hope they don't leave him there? Does he go there and just hope they don't fuck around? We're going home early. And he's shit. They never explain how he's supposed to get out of there. Neither here nor there. But he's going in over, and they've said now this is 20 or 30 trips into the Upside Down trying to find Vecna to no avail. They've had no luck finding Vecna. And then as time passes, we realize that while we still don't see Vecna, we don't see Vecna until the 4th episode. Well, we don't see that form of Vecna. Let me just say it that way.
Yeah.
We don't see that form of Vecna until the 4th episode. There's something creepy going on with Holly, who is Mike's younger sister. one thing I really did like about this first episode, and also the stakes. You talk about like where was the kind of like the fulcrum where it kind of turned. If there's one common denominator in Stranger Things, it's that the kids are involved and the parents are seemingly utterly clueless. Like outside of Joyce, who is Winona Ryder's character, who's been involved, literally since day one because Will went missing. Uh, Everybody else's parents are just kind of like woefully oblivious to what's going on in their town, their kids. Even me at this point, like 4 years in, or they're supposed to be, it started in 83, they're in 87. 4 years in, you'd be like, haven't you figured out some weird shit's going on around here? Like, you don't live in New York where like something happens in Staten Island you don't hear about in Manhattan. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
But I like that. So basically, the long and short of it is Demogorgons are coming for a child, and the child they're coming for is Holly Wheeler, which is a new actress playing Holly. I believe it's a new actress playing Holly from the other seasons. And the finale of the first episode is really, really, I mean, it's pretty dramatic because the Demogorgon crashes through the Wheeler house and attacks the Wheeler mother and father to get to Holly. And I think you'd agree, Patrick, when you go into Endgame, when you go into the final season, the stakes are raised. And I know the Duffer Brothers have said, like, no one's safe. And I know that, I mean, that was literally a running theme throughout every season of Game of Thrones, no one's safe.
Yeah.
But I did like the first episode opened with that. Like, there was the stakes right away. Like, we're not, like, characters that have kind of just kind of cruised through because they're, woefully oblivious. Now they're involved because now the thing is coming for their family literally directly at them, and there's no more ignoring what's going on around you.
And that kind of rolls right into the top of episode 2, which is the Demogorgon comes for Holly. And her dad, barely tries to fight it. And then mom, Karen, comes for the Demogorgon, like, you're not taking my kid. It is weird that they are so oblivious, but I know it's the Duffer Brothers saying, yeah, but that's every parent in an 80s movie. They don't know. And I go, okay, I get it, but we're not doing a movie right now. We're doing a television show, and I need those characters to grow a little bit, Well, they grow real quick in episode 2 because they're facing down a Demogorgon and they cannot deny what's going on. It's coming for their daughter. Karen fights like hell, and they realize at the bottom of episode 1, top of episode 2, that Will can see the Demogorgon's moves. He can see what they're doing. He can see what they're after. So he knows where they're going. So I believe it's Nancy and Robin who go straight for the house to try to save Holly. And they get there just too late. The Demogorgon grabs her and leaves the parents seemingly on death's door. But Damon, this is Stranger Things. People don't die. If you like them, they don't die. That's how it works. Or if you really like them, we'll put them in like half a season and then we'll kill them. R.I.P. Eddie. That frustrated me because I was like, oh, if mom should be dead. Like, mom should be like no one should be that close to a Demogorgon with no training and survive. But mom gets to survive, dad gets to survive, and no one even
right. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Right away, that was my first problem because the stakes are raised by the way, I'm fine if one parent survives, but like literally the dad is staring down at Demogorgon with a golf club, and it swipes at him. Okay. So I'm like, oh, because my first initial thought was they're going to kill the Wheeler parents, like right out of the gate. That's pretty hardcore. Like go Duffer Brothers, because you're saying the stakes are raised. That's raising the stakes pretty high. And then when Mrs. Wheeler stares down the Demogorgon with a broken wine bottle, which was so street, I loved it. She's like, "You're not taking my daughter." I was like, "This is full on get away from her, you bitch" energy. I was like, cool. And I'm fine if one parent survives, but like they both kind of get taken in like, oh yeah, your parents are, and they're in critical but stable condition. I'm just like, I'm not saying I'm rooting for everyone to die, but I'm just like, come on, like that would have set the tone for the series. For the rest of the season, I mean.
I couldn't agree more, Damon, and this is kind of like one of my big gripes with this show. Like, for instance, last season when Max was literally in the grip of Vecna and she was being raised up in the air, I go, here we go. A character we really love is about to die. Good. Like, not good because I want her to die. Good because this show needs to show there is dire stakes ahead. And then they just make her hang on to light. They're like, we'll give you a chance. We'll thread you through. I'm actually going to be more pissed if what they're doing is threading Max, and more on Max later. If they're just threading Max and threading the Wheeler parents all the way to the end, and then they die off peacefully in the finale, I would be actually really pissed about that because I'm like, you're just stringing us along in this shit. Like, give us a reason to go, oh my God, you guys need to figure this out right now. People are dying left and right. Go get it. I think maybe, and I'm just surmising here, that maybe in the offices at Netflix, they go, look, we still want a lot of kids to watch this show. And a lot of my kids watch this show. My kids watched all 4 episodes with us last night. Maybe don't do that. Maybe find a way to string them along. I have a feeling that that might be part of it because this core group of kids, they are really important to multiple generations of people. We got guys in their 40s talking about them on a podcast, and we got elementary school kids who love them and have them on their backpacks and shit. So I get it. I go, okay, I guess that's why they're not doing that. But I got to admit, it frustrates the hell out of me. Like, just show me that this thing has real stakes. And this is not the only time they do this in this first volume. They do multiple fake outs in this volume where you go, okay, I guess so and so is going off to die and we're gonna have a dramatic ending. No, just kidding. We're gonna keep stringing this along all the way until the end and eat that day. And that goes all the way up to episode 4. Like, we're in full spoilers, right? All the way up to episode 4. I'm sure that somebody's going to die and no one does. They are literally going to string us all the way to the end, and then someone will die. Who that is, I don't know yet. I mean, I've heard every theory on the planet, but that's a problem in this show. This show doesn't have enough stakes for me personally. I'm from the Game of Thrones era where my favorite character is always up on the chopping block, and that grips me. That gets me excited, and then I also know that I can continue on. But I think they're just playing this differently because it has such a mass appeal. They don't want to piss anybody off.
Well, the thing about here's the thing that I don't understand about that particular instance with these characters, because while I love Cara Bueno, who plays Mrs. Wheeler, she was also Christopher Moltisanti's wife in the final season of Sopranos. I discovered that a few years ago, and I was like, holy shit, it's the same person. I love her. I think she's a great actor, and I think like she's had obviously a bigger role in the show than her dorky donkey husband, which I'm still like, whatever attracted you to this dude? I'm really trying to understand that.
That's the 80s for you.
Yeah, that dude has outkicked his coverage in a major, major way, and doesn't seem to understand he outkicked his coverage. But like ultimately, Mr. and Mrs. Wheeler are not integral characters. Like, I understand you're probably not gonna knock off Winona Ryder's character in the first episode of the final season.
Probably
People are
not.
like, what
Yeah.
the fuck? Like, and I get it. So that I understand. But like, these are ultimately like very mid characters. Like, they've been there since season 1, but like they've never really been truly entrenched in any of the stories. They just have a connection to the characters. They are Nancy and Mike's mother and father. So I don't understand. Like, okay, they eventually use Mrs. Wheeler to figure out that Holly was talking to an imaginary friend named Mr. Watson. Now, she is reading In a Wrinkle of Time. Is a wrinkle in a wrinkle of time?
Yeah, A Wrinkle in Time. Yeah.
Never read that book. Never read the book, so I have no idea about this. This is one thing where I'm completely oblivious to it. But she was talking to Mr. Watson. There's a Mrs. Watson, I guess, in that book, and she called him Mr. Watson. And we figure out it's actually Henry Creel. It's Vecna in his human-looking form. And so when she's in the hospital, her larynx has been torn up so she can't talk. So she writes, she's like, did Mr. Watson have a first name? Because obviously it's her daughter. She's talked to her about her imaginary friend. And she writes Henry, and that's when they figure out it's been Henry Creel plotting to take Holly this entire time. So she plays a role. Even though I would have rather her,
Yes.
I'm not saying I'm rooting for anyone to die, but like I would have rather her died, at least she plays a role. The dad, I mean,
He might as well be dead. He's not even saying anything.
Like, who's gonna miss him? Like, I just that was a frustrating part because I'm just like, why does he matter? Like, I mean, the stakes are still there because he's a guy who's been there since season 1, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the kids' parents. Easily knock him off. I don't especially because like clearly they don't have a problem showing death on this show because about 1 million soldiers get ripped to shreds by the Demogorgons in the final episode. That's cool, but we can't kill Mr. Dorky Wheeler that no one really likes anyways. Like, he's not a very popular character. He has been there since season one. What are we losing by not losing him? I don't understand. Like, that frustrated me because I'm like, that would have set the tone. Minute one, day one, we are in game. Anyone can die, even though ultimately they were kind of
Yeah,
non-consequential
that still would have been
characters.
a little bit of a cop out, but at least it would have raised the stakes.
Yeah, because you're taking characters that have been there the entire time. So yeah, I had the same thought because like when it happened, I was like, oh shit, like they're really like they're damn like they're showing the Demogorgon slashing Mr. and Mrs. Wheeler. Shit, man, they're not playing around, they're not fucking around. And then they both made it. And I was like, what? Like, huh?
Yeah. The show doesn't have enough teeth for me. No pun intended, Demogorgons. It just doesn't. Like, and so that it always lands a little weaker for me than I think other people. I think probably for kids, it's like, holy fuck, like that was intense. I don't want my mom and dad at death's door. Like, so it works for some people and it works for psychopaths like us a little bit less. Some other things in episode two, Robin. Okay, Maya Hawke, the human being, I actually very, very much like. Robin, the character, I despise. This is just a personal gripe, Damon. This is my grind my gears moment. I do not like this character. And I bet she's a fan favorite. I'm almost sure of it because if I don't like them a lot, that must mean everybody else must love them. The Robin character is essentially the job is to be the exposition dump in every single episode. She comes in, she talks for very long amounts of time to explain to people what's happening. And she surmises in this episode that Will is actually a receiver that is getting signals from Vecna. So they're like, cool, let's figure out like how to use Will as a tool. And that's one of the big reveals of episode two. The other one being, and we skipped over to, we didn't skip over it a little bit, but the fact that Vecna is coming after kids, random kids, which is kind of bumming me out. It's bumming me out that they're so random to me because, again, if it was stakes, I guess Holly is a familiar kid, although they had to recast her. So in the beginning, I was like, who even is this kid? Like, I was like, what's she doing in the house? I didn't even understand. Like she's the initial like, oh no, they took Holly, even though I don't recognize Holly, they took her. But really he's just after a bunch of random kids to do what I'm not sure. So I think that's supposed to be something that we're supposed to latch onto. Will can see Vecna, but Vecna is targeting children in Hawkins. For what nefarious purpose, we still do not know. I think even by the end of the fourth episode, we don't truly know why. We kind of get a sense of why, but we don't really know why. But those are the things we kind of learned out of episode two. And now Hopper and Eleven, of course, are in the Upside Down at the same time. And they're going to infiltrate what we realize is a military lab, Damon. The military have set up a lab in the Upside Down. They're doing experiments on creatures down there, and they have a plan. Their plan is to find 11. And this was maybe my favorite addition to Stranger Things, which is Dr. K. Is it
Dr. K, yes.
Dr. K, played by the badass herself, one of my favorite action heroes from the 1990s. Linda Hamilton is Dr. K, and she has her sights on 11. And here's what I like. And I was reading something last night because, as you mentioned, you could read everything you wanted to about 10 seconds after the show was done. The Duffer Brothers wanted to design a character who had no emotional tie to 11, but yet still wanted her for nefarious purposes. That's Dr. K. Dr. K, unlike Papa, who Matthew Modine's character, who did love 11 on some level, Dr. K does not give a shit about 11. She sees 11 as a weapon, and she wants to find her. And she's not sure how she's tied to all of the things that are happening in Hawkins, but she knows she is. And so she's like, I'm gonna find that girl, and I'm gonna make her my toy. That is like proper super villain status, where it's just like, I don't care about this kid. It's like a Cruella de situation. I just want this thing. I want this thing. I want to make it my weapon, and I want to see what I can do with it. Cold, heartless, and this is something else I like about Dr. K, tough as fucking nails. don't get in front of her. I believe they called her Major General, so she had a military background. So Major General Dr. K can kick much ass because it's Linda fucking Hamilton, so of course she can. This is maybe my favorite addition so far. And the idea that she does not give a fuck, she has no emotional tie to these people, to me is the one little shining light in all of this, because I have a feeling down the line that she is going to wreck shop in the worst way possible. You are going to, I think, hate Dr. K by the end of the series.
Yeah, I like that addition. The one thing I will say though that gets a little tiresome, and this goes back to even last season, is like, do we like or not like as a government or as like a bigger entity? Do we like or do we not like, or do we trust or do we not trust 11? I'm like, at this point, kind of figure it out, guys. Like, because she's the hero, she saves the day in season 2. She comes back from hiding and she goes and she saves the day with season 2. Her powers run out in season 3, but she's still very much a part of the finale to stop the Mind Flayer. And then in season 4, she's gaining her powers back, and she comes back at the very end and basically at that secret facility crashes the helicopter to save or try to save Papa, to try to save her friends, and then escapes in that. So I understand, like, season 4 kind of made sense to me, where they were like trying to find her because they know she's connected and they want, they don't really say what they want to use her for, but they're basically trying to figure out what she can do, who she is, and how she relates to all the weird shit going on in the world. I'm not saying they shouldn't have carried that story forward, but it's almost like, make up your mind. Like, I'm kind of tired of the 11 has to be in hiding thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she wasn't technically
Yeah.
at the beginning of last season, but it was like one episode, 2 episodes where she's in California living with Joyce and them, and then boom, she's right back on the government's radar and being hunted again. And I'm just like, we've kind of had that the entire time. Could we not like just like? I'm not saying they have to ignore her, but like, do we have to just constantly treat her like a lab rat? Like, she escaped the lab, we got to get her back in there. It's a little tiresome for me, but I will agree that Linda Hamilton's character, kind of being the other villain in this show besides Vecna, it's a great foil, because it's almost like Star Wars in a way, when you think about, like, Darth Vader was the villain. Like, he was the villain everyone loved. Everyone loved Vader. But he still had to answer to somebody, and that was the Emperor. And when the Emperor finally actually was revealed and appeared in Return of the Jedi, that was one of the strongest parts of that movie. Was revealing to, like, it wasn't just Vader. Like, he had someone pulling his strings. It was the Emperor. So while Vecna is obviously in game here, Vecna is the biggest bad in the whole show. Adding in a character like Dr. K adds another layer of, like, villainy to this show, which you kind of need. And they've kind of had that. Like, it was Pop, it was, Matthew Modine's character in season 1, and obviously coming back a little bit in season 4. And they've obviously had other, just like, having Billy, have being infected by the Mind Flayer, and he was kind of the big bad sorta of season 3, and then the Mind Flayer itself was, there. So I get it. And I like it, but I'm just a little over we got to hunt down and capture 11. I'm just like, can we move on from that already?
It's making me realize right now as we talk about it that that's my expectation, is that, oh, Linda Hamilton will be so hardcore that we'll hate her by the end. I'm realizing something right now. This is Stranger Things. So what's going to happen is, by the end, they're going to strap a Gatling gun to Linda Hamilton, and she's going to try to blow Vecna to hell. Like, she's gonna make the turn and become one of the good guys, because that's how Stranger Things works. It's like, at the end, we brought Linda Hamilton in, so we'll have to make you love her by the end. Maybe that's actually what her trajectory is she was going after 11 this whole time to make her weapon, and then she realizes Vecna is the stronger weapon, and then Vecna gets on her bad side. So Dr. K goes full oh God, what was her character's name in Terminator?
Sarah Connor.
Yeah, she goes full Sarah Connor on Vecna, right? But just for the satisfaction of it all, because the Duffer Brothers do they do deal in nostalgia, so they're probably going to give her at least some of those moments, or maybe a tiny redemption arc or something. I hope they don't. I hope she goes full villain all the way to the end, and what we really get is a very satisfying death for this this evil character that is human ultimately, because why, your frustration makes sense, is like, why wouldn't the military at some point realize that actually 11's a great tool to help fight the actual problem? That's not how a TV show ever works. Like they don't ever see the forest from the trees. So yeah, I think it's probably more the other way around.
Yeah. But I mean, ultimately, like, because what we're dealing with the vast majority of these 4 episodes is the government is running these facilities both on the other side in Hawkins, and also they built an entire lab running in the Upside Down, and they're studying creatures. And at one point, when Eleven and Hopper, I know we jump around a lot here because obviously we're talking about 4 episodes. I'm just treating it as like one story, so we do jump around a
Yeah.
lot. Hopper and Eleven are invading the facility because they're trying to figure out what they believe, because at one point they have this weird sonic weapon that like basically knocks out Eleven. Like she's in such pain. It's almost like, like Superman's hearing is so acute that when you do these really loud, you can actually disrupt Superman by playing really, really loud or really certain noises because his ears are so sensitive. And they run this weird sonic disruptor that kind of takes Eleven out. And it's and Hopper calls it her kryptonite. He's like, they got something, they got some kind of weapon. And when they get near it, Eleven realizes that somebody else with powers, she does the bathtub thing where she puts the blindfold on and she's going walking through people's memories and shit, and she does it with a soldier, and realizes they got somebody in holding in that underground upside down, well, not underground, upside down facility that has powers like hers, and she's convinced they don't need to look for Vecna. The military's already captured Vecna and they're using him to get to her. Now, in theory, I was like, when I first said that, I was like, huh? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense considering where the story's going with Vecna also kidnapping children, and clearly he's still out there. Like, we still, like, Henry Creel is showing up in kids, like, in the real world. Why would he be? But I didn't mind the twist in terms of, like, they have somebody with the power and it has to be Vecna. Like, it has to be Vecna, right? But even then I was like, that's kind of a weird theory, because why? Like, what purpose are they trying to serve? They captured the big bad. I guess they believe 11 is the big bad. I don't know. Anyways, but the big reveal. Should I just give the big reveal at the end?
Oh
Of
yeah.
the
Yeah, let's just do it.
Hopper straps on a suicide vest. He straps on a bomb, and I'll be honest, my girlfriend was like, "Oh no." They're actually gonna, because he goes off. He sends 11 on her way, and he's like, "Kid, sorry, I love you. You're the world to me, but I got to do this. It's the only way we're gonna get to Vecna. They think Vecna's in there. They're like, we got to do it. I got to do it." And he straps on the dynamite vest, and you're like, "Oh, here's the stakes, Hopper." Maybe they're like, "Oh my God, they're gonna kill Hopper in the 4th episode." And even I was like, they can't kill Hopper in the 4th episode, but maybe that's like the stakes of the show. Like, they didn't kill the Wheelers, they're gonna do it with Hopper. Into the show, of course, Hopper doesn't actually blow himself up. He finds 11 and brings her back in after he opens the door. And inside, strapped to machines and nodes and all this shit, is Callie. 8 from season 2, the episode that every Stranger Things fan despises.
And is my favorite episode of that season, I will add.
And I'm one of you and I are one of the few people that actually enjoyed that episode, but the vast majority of people hated that episode where Eleven's off on her own, running around with other kids that have been raised by Dr. Brenner, and kind of they were trying to find Papa, they were trying to find Matthew Modine's character, and that's where we meet Callie 8, who is kind of like her sister. She calls her sister, and she's never come back since then. It's almost like the Denver saw the reaction of that episode, like, maybe we shouldn't bring these people back because nobody liked that episode except for Patrick and Damon. And then we find out she's strapped. She's got her head shaved. She's strapped, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's what." And by the way, of all the like twists and turns and reveals and everything, that was actually one of my favorites. I was like, they finally brought her back, because I wondered, like,
Yes.
are they ever going to bring this character back? Like, she actually had powers. She was similar to 11. The fact that the government captured her and they're using her as their guinea pig to figure out powers to get to 11, to use it maybe eventually against Vecna, whatever, that I actually really enjoyed. It was like, finally they brought her back. 3 seasons later, she wasn't dead. They didn't just do a single episode and just said, "Oh, fuck off." They actually brought her back. So that I enjoyed.
This is my favorite part of this entire volume, is the return of 8. Yes, Damon. I remember when season 2 came out, everybody goes, "Oh, there's one episode that is so horrible, I just hate it." And I was hating the whole season. And then that episode came up. I was like, oh, I really like this episode. This is the one I like. Yeah, it turned out that was the one everyone else hated. That makes total sense. The Duffer Brothers were like, we love eight, but we didn't know the right place to bring her back for. And we did not want to leave that hanging. There was no reason to leave that hanging. It would have been like kind of a mark on our resume if we just left that episode hanging. We needed to find a way to bring her back, and this was the perfect opportunity. Finally, we tried to find ways for her in season four, and we felt like it was shoehorning her in. This was like, oh no, she's actually an integral piece. I like this. I like the idea that 8 and 11 could be together and potentially have combined powers, which I think they're going to need, Damon, because let's be honest, when Vecna shows back up finally, and we'll get into his plan in a minute here, he's as powerful as he's ever been. It seems like he's going to be stronger than he's ever been, and there's reasons behind that. So you're going to need more than just 11 reaching out and screaming with a nosebleed into the ether to try and beat him. She's going to need like a team. She's going to need a lot of power, her kind of power. And so the fact that she now has eight on her side, I know it's probably going to take a while for eight to recover from whatever they've been doing to her. I like that. To me, that's a great callback, and it's going to give you what I think is a logical advantage for our gang. They're gonna need to be stronger than they already are. There's one other big advantage coming, Damon. Should we get into that? Are we gonna? I mean, I don't know that there's much else like really to get to, but there's a big old meaty piece of something that's happening in the fourth episode that I think is very much worth talking about.
So the fourth episode is largely about the main characters trying to get the children who are being targeted by Vecna out of Hawkins because they realize the only way to really truly keep them safe is to get them out of the quarantine zone and away. Because just like when Will and Eleven and all her family moved over to the West Coast, that was like the healthiest Will has been this entire show because he was so disconnected from the Upside Down, where he had been kidnapped and held prisoner for however months or weeks or whatever he was over there back in season one. Um, so I actually enjoy. I was like, that makes sense. Like you're away from the source of the plague, so to speak. You're gonna be
Yeah.
you're gonna be better. And so yeah, I like
Yeah, if
that.
he's the
So
receiver, he's farther and farther away from the signal, so he can't be manipulated by it. So
so
that
they
actually
realize
does make sense.
yeah, so they realize the best way to keep the kids safe is to get them out of this Hawkins quarantine zone and away from where the Upside Down is. And so they're like, the military doesn't understand this. Like, they don't get it. Like, they think they're going to protect these children from being kidnapped by Vecna. They have no idea what they're dealing with. And clearly the government doesn't because, I mean, I don't think our government has a lot of ideas about anything. So they go in and they're taking the kids who have actually dealt with Mr. Whatsit, who is actually Vecna, and they're trying to get them out of the facility. Of course, as things tend to do, go haywire, doesn't work. I mean, they get some of the kids out, but not everyone. Military figures out what they're going on, but at this same time, Vecna sends the Demogorgons to get the kids because that's like his big end game is to kidnap all these children, bring them to his world in the Upside Down, plug them in like Matrix batteries, and we'll kind of talk about the end game in a little bit. Demogorgons attack, blah blah blah. Military gets wiped out, and at the end, the Demogorgons are hurt and they get stunned because the I'm not going to get into all the details. Long story short, Demogorgons attack, and at the end of the show, the Demogorgons are ready to kill Mike. They're ready to kill Joyce. They're ready to kill Dustin. They're ready to kill Lucas. They're ready to kill Robin and Murray. Everyone's basically under attack from Demogorgons. They're going to get fucked up, and then out of nowhere, Will raises his hand and basically pulls a Vecna, not an 11, by the way, and basically crushes the Demogorgons. They all flip and turn and twist just like Vecna did with Chrissy last season and almost did it to Max. They all twist and break. His eyes roll back white, and he stops the Demogorgons from killing Mike and killing everyone else. They all die. He twists the Demogorgons into little pretzels and kills them all. And then at the end, you zoom in on Will. He's got his hand out, kind of like 11, kind of like Vecna. His nose is bleeding. He wipes it free. Will Byers has powers. Now, did you read anything from the Duffer Brothers about those powers? Because I got a little tip here that I want to tell people about.
Let's hear it, Damon.
Okay, so the season opens with a flashback to Will being in the Upside Down and Vecna attaching him to his weird vine thing and like basically pumping shit into him from minute one. He was the first kid that Vecna kidnapped, and he's like, "You'll be the first. You're the first one I'm gonna have here." And he pumped him full of all his dark black ooky shit. And then we pick up 4 years later where Will is now. The Duffer Brothers said, and I think it was Entertainment Weekly. I want to give credit where credit's due. I think it was Entertainment Weekly. They said that Will has not always had powers. He's not 11. He wasn't born with this ability.
Right.
But he was so attached to Vecna from his time in the Upside Down until now, and he's continuously used him, just like when he infected him in season 2, and he's always had that weird thing where he gets like kind of like hairs on the back of his neck raised whenever Vecna's near. Basically, they're saying that, yeah, and this episode you learn that he almost has a sight, like he can see through the Demogorgon's eyes, he can see through almost like Vecna's eyes because he's been so attached to him since the first season. Will's powers are coming from Vecna. They're not his. It's not he's now a badass and he's 11. He's basically tapping into Vecna's power, and as long as Vecna's near, Vecna's out there, he can continue to tap into that source and use the power. So Will is not just limitless. He's not just 11 all of a sudden. He's basically learning how to. And by the way, when Will, the whole Will had powers thing first happened in the episode, I was kind of like, all right, like, I guess, like, I was like, weird, took this long to manifest. Like, why are we just now learning he has powers like 4 years later? And the Duffer Brothers actually said that interview. They thought about doing it in season 2 when he's in real peril and they were trying to sweat it out of him and everything. But they said, I just didn't feel like it didn't feel enough time had passed to go that from season 1 to season 2. By now it's 4 years, and he's always been tapped into Vecna. He didn't know how tapped into Vecna he was until like this full-on assault on Hawkins, and all the rifts were open in the Upside Down going into Hawkins. But he's like, so be aware, Will is not just 11 now. He is using Vecna's power. He's basically stealing his gasoline to fuel his powers. So that leads me to my biggest theory about the final episodes of the show, Patrick. And we're going to talk about our predictions in a little bit. But I believe Will having powers, great cliffhanger at the end of season, at the end of volume 1. He shows powers, his nose bleeds, he saves Mike, the man he loves, everything. Cool, right? But the idea that he is only powered by Vecna gives me the belief that when they finally kill Vecna, that's also going to kill Will, because he's been so attached to Vecna this entire time. When it's almost like that's his life support. Once Vecna dies, I think Will dies.
Oh, Damon, and I 100% agree with you, because they've been teeing it up the entire first volume. Anytime that a Demogorgon is hurt, Will gets hurt. There's a scene where they start to burn them alive, and Will's like writhing on the ground in pain. He's tapped into the hive mind. He is imbued with the powers of Vecna. If you hurt him, or if you hurt something from the Upside Down, you're hurting Will too, because he's imbued with all those powers. Now, obviously, Vecna is so much more strong than Will, that he can withstand like little hits here and there, but Will can't. And he has this moment with Vecna, and Vecna explains to him like, I chose you because you are easily manipulated. You are weak. That's why he's targeting children. That's where you learn. I'm targeting specific children who are weaker than most. And what Will finds out in the last moments of episode 4 is that he's stronger than most. I don't know where he got that strength all of a sudden. I don't know. It's just plot armor, I guess. Where he decides, no, I'm actually super strong. Vecna, you were totally wrong about me. I do think that not only is Will tapped to probably expire because they have to stop Vecna, they have to stop him. I think that's a given. And I feel like Will's been on borrowed time since we got him back. Not only that, I do think at one point having those powers is going to actually become a big problem for the team. I think it'll be an advantage at first. You'd be like, oh, I've got 8, I got 11, and I got Will with the power of Vecna. We're a badass fucking team. But Vecna is, again, we've determined something much stronger than any of these things. I think he's going to turn Will at one point, and Will is going to become his weapon, and that's going to be a problem. When that starts, how that starts, I don't know. But I think ultimately Will have to sacrifice himself to save everybody. I think that's how it's going to go. I really do think that's it's starting to look like that's what the plan is.
Yeah, and the other thing we talked about in this episode, so we haven't even mentioned this, of course. So when with the kids being kidnapped, Holly goes into this weird like normal world, like doesn't look like the Upside Down. She's like hanging out at the Krill house because Henry is like taking her there, and he's like, "You can hang out here." He gets her a boom box and a Tiffany tape, and she's so happy. And then she gets a little note in a mailbox that says, "This is Henry. Meet me here." He tells her very specifically, "Don't go in the woods. Whatever you do, don't go in the woods. I'll be back in a few hours." And she's like, "Great." And of course, she sees the little flag up on the mailbox, meaning she's got mail. And so she goes out to get it, and she gets a little note saying, "Meet me in the woods," from Henry. So she travels into the woods, despite him originally telling her not to. And she gets there, and that's where we find Max. Max is in this weird, like, mind world of Henry Creel. And long story short, when Vecna nearly killed Max at the end of season 4, she's in a coma. She's still alive in the coma, but she's not conscious. She's very much in a coma. But somehow she is also existing in this mind world of Henry Creel. And what we come to find out, Holly and these other kids that have been taken, and I think they said there's 3 other kids. There's Holly and 3 other kids randomly there. They're all tapped into like the source, like they're all plugged in like batteries, like the Matrix. They got the weird vine in their mouths, and they're all being used and pumped full of this, and like they're living in like a fantasy world of Vecna's mind, of Henry Creel's mind. Here's my question, and I still don't totally understand this. So Holly being tapped into the source, the other kids being tapped into the source, where they're like basically plugged into the Matrix, them existing in Vecna's mind world totally makes sense. He's created this euphoric world. They're basically taking the plot of the Matrix. I'm fine with that, by the way. They're taking the plot to make the kids are all plugged into the battery, and they're all living this idyllic life while he's essentially feeding off their life force, I guess. And I think Vecna's game is like he wants to create his own world, like where kids are, like where like the perfect utopia of people. Because clearly Vecna hates humans, but he's like, I can mold and shape these children in a different way, being in my mind's eye, whatever. But we find out that Max is in there. And Max says she's been in there since the entire time, and she's learned that they're all trapped in Henry Creel's memories. Okay, again, that's straight out of the Matrix. I'm cool with that. All the other kids are plugged into Vecna's upside down battery farm. Max is in a coma. How the fuck is Max in there? Like, that never made sense to me, because yes, I know she's in a coma. That I'm fine with, and her not being conscious. Okay, fine. How is she tapped into the source though? Because they've now shown that everyone else that's in there, mainly Holly, has that weird tube in their throat, and they're actually unconscious, being battery farmed. How does Matt, like, were they just like, you know what, we have to give Sadie Sink something to do in these first 4 episodes when she's not alive, so let's stick her in there? Because my first thought was, I was like, oh, this is going to be the moment where they bring back Eddie Munson. He's not really alive. He's just a memory.
Right. I thought it was going to be Eddie. Yeah.
And that's the way they bring him back for an episode or two, is like he's the memory of Eddie, but it's not really Eddie. Because remember, the Demo Bats attacked and killed Eddie last season, so he would have been in Vecna's memory some way. And because he was there when Chrissy died, so like he does have a memory of Eddie. I was like, oh, that would be cool. Like, he's not really alive, so we're not breaking the rules and he's coming back alive or anything, and he's not some undead soldier. But then it was Max, and I'm just like, but she's in a fucking coma, and like, what? Did you get lost on that too? Like, how she's in there?
Oh, I'm very lost on Max's story, honestly, because she should have died in the last season. I mean, she was dead to rights, so it didn't make sense to me that she even lived at all. But maybe there's some sort of like hack, and I think she's the hack, which is like, oh, if you get this close, here's the way out. Honestly, Damon, it's a way to keep Sadie Sink around because people love Sadie Sink. Okay, fine, that's fine. We're doing that. But Damon, remember, the first thing they stole wasn't the Matrix. The Duffer Brothers first stole it. And we also, by the way, this is a great time to just advertise patreon.com/rewind of the living dead, where we are covering it, Welcome to Derry. And you can hear every episode if you're a paying patron. Join us over there. We talk about one thing in it, which is once Pennywise gets a kid, you don't get them back. You don't. You just don't. As much as you hope to get them back, you won't. I don't think we're getting any of those kids back. If Vecna's got them, he's got them. And I do think Max is going to like play some sort of a kind of an intermediary role, like she exists between both worlds, but he kind of got her, and now we're not going to get her back. I think she's going to stay dead. Like she'll die in the hospital. She'll flatline in the hospital, and she'll live on in that world. Maybe that'll be their little workaround. We never killed Sadie Sink. She just lives in the Upside Down, which is now the Upside Right or whatever we're going to call it. But I don't think you're going to get her back, and I don't think you're going to get Holly back. And if you do, boy, I can't wait to see the gymnastics they pull off to make that make sense. But I think that they always intended on that. That when Pennywise gets his claws in you, you're stuck. So I think everybody that Vecna has gotten is stuck, and that includes Will. And I think Will's a goner, Damon. I don't know when you want to get into it, but I do think there are some characters that I think are doomed to die in this show. I think Will's one of them, and I do think Max is one of them as well.
So a lot of our creator friends, and I get it why they did it. I almost did it myself. Naming like who's going to live, who's going to die, because we all got to believe, as safe as the Duffer Brothers played it through the first 4 episodes, there's going to be some character death somewhere along the line. And by the way, they're not scared of that. I mean, remember, go back to season 1. Like, I know Barb was a very like non-essential character at that point, but like 2 episodes in, they killed Barb, who was Nancy's best friend, and that became a hanging thread throughout the series. They killed Eddie. Obviously, we all know how big, how huge that character became and how beloved Eddie became. They still killed him. Now, granted, they had already filmed the series. They had no idea Eddie was going to become this pop culture phenomenon, or maybe he wouldn't have died. But they did. They killed him, and they, and they've said now. I still don't know that I totally believe them saying he's not coming back. I'm like, come on, there's going to be like a random. So I don't know. I'm still not.
They'll give us a little Eddie, I'm sure.
Anytime a showrunner's like, there's no chance he's never coming back, I'm like, you are lying. Anyways, but they're clearly not afraid of killing characters. And by the way, I actually enjoy that the show. Just like, one thing I do like about Netflix is like, there's no time to react. Like, they filmed the season. This is the season. You're going to get whether you love it, you hate it, you criticize it, whatever. When they decided to kill Eddie at the end of season 4, they're like, well, we killed Eddie. Like, there's no coming back from that. And I thought the Henry Krill mind thing was a cool way they could have brought him back. I almost would have rather that. Now, I understand maybe they just couldn't get, what's his name, Joe.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
They couldn't bring, he's so busy, he's doing a million movies. Maybe they just couldn't get him back. But that was my original thought. Like, let him be there so we see Eddie, but he's not really Eddie. He's dead. But everyone does predictions who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. So now we are 4 episodes in. Technically, no one has died besides a whole shitload of army people. So, Patrick, who are your top 3 characters that you don't believe are going to make it out alive by the end of the finale, which, by the way, is New Year's Eve. That's the last episode. When this series is over, who are the 3 characters you believe are most likely to die?
Well, like I just said, I think Max is up for grabs right now. So maybe she's on my bubble. I don't know if I guarantee you. Like, I think they want to wake her up and reunite her with Lucas, but I can guarantee you Hopper's gone. Why? Because that's the dad's job. The dad's job is to take all the bullets and make sure the kids survive. I think Will's out, so I think it's Hopper. I think it's Will, and then I'm kind of oscillating between Max and 11. I don't know. I feel like they want to keep 11 alive, but I feel like 11 will probably be like, I have to sacrifice myself, or I have to do something. Like, she has to. And I almost think Millie Bobby Brown as an actor has to be like, I need to for sure be done. Like, you need to for sure make me done. I need to leave this chapter of my career. So I'm oscillating, but I think for sure Hopper, I think for sure Will, and then it's either Max or 11. Those are the ones I think are definitely going.
I think Hopper is the safest one on the show.
Interesting.
And here's why. They did the false death with him at the end of season 3, where he sacrificed himself and you realized that he didn't die. They took him and they brought him to Russia and they were basically kidnapping him, holding him over there. They already did the false death with Hopper. And they almost did it again in this in the first, in the
Yeah.
fourth episode of this season when he had to strap on the dynamite vest and he's going after who he thought was Vecna. They did the fake out. They already did the false death in season 3. They did the fake out already in season 4. I think at this point it would almost feel disingenuous to kill Hopper because they've brought him to the brink of death so many times. It would almost feel like, nah, you can't, like, he's got to be the guy that survives because you've already kind of killed him in a way. Like, we thought until that post-credit scene in season 3 where they talk about the American, and I thought it was like, damn, like they killed Hopper. Like, it was a pretty cool exit moment for him. That whole machine blowing up and him getting blown to bits. I was like, that's kind of a cool exit. Like, man, it's sad, but kind of a cool exit. They brought him back. I don't think they can do it again. I don't think they could give him like another, like, and they just did the false death again in season 4, in the 4th episode of season 5. I think Hopper's safe. I think he's going to make it. Because they already gave him his death moment. He had the vision of his daughter dying of cancer, and he called her the strongest girl he's ever known. He had that vision as he walked out there with the dynamite vest on. He's going to blow up the whole facility and kill Vecna. It didn't happen. So I think he's the safest guy on the show, if you want my honest opinion. I don't think he's going anywhere. So my number 1 is Will. I think Will's gone. I think him tapping in and using Vecna's power when Vecna dies, Will dies. I think that's the end of Will.
Yeah.
Number 2, I'm gonna lean towards Max because she's in this coma and clearly she's living in this weird mind world. I think she's gonna come out of the coma just long enough to tell Lucas she loves him, and then she's gonna expire because like she's been trapped in there so long. And if you don't know, like, movie comas and TV comas are different than real life comas. You can't just live in a coma forever and expect to wake up and not be brain dead. Okay, so I'm hoping there's a little bit of realism there. Like, she's been in a coma for like 4 months. Not a whole lot of coming back from that at that point. Like, watch medicine science. I'm sure you're aware you don't get to just exist in a coma forever. Like, yes, you can be on life-saving machinery, but you're not really alive. You're not really like hanging out and just like, I'm going to wake up and be good. So I think Max is on my list. And then my third one's a bit of a wild card because I've said for the longest time, I think Steve is a goner. Because the first couple seasons, like the big thing with Steve is you get the shit kicked out of him and make it through and find a way to survive. Steve has become one of the most, like, he went from being the bully asshole in season 1 to one of the most beloved characters. And by the way, full redemption arc. He is a great character. Steve's a really fun character.
Yeah.
But if you kill Jonathan, who no one seems to really care about much, he's kind of like oh yeah, he's still there character. If you kill him to clear the way for Nancy to go back with Steve, which is what everyone wants now,
that's true, very true.
Then you are 100% just playing to the audience. Now I'm not saying
that's fan service all day. Yeah,
100% fan service. Killing Steve is in-game shit. You know what I mean? Like, Nancy realizes she still loves Steve still loves Nancy, and then Steve dies. That feels too poetic. Or Steve dies, never having expressed his feelings to Nancy, and she ends up marrying loser Jonathan because he's just a very boring character that no one seems to care about very much. I think Steve is still a goner. You gotta wipe out a fan favorite. I'm not saying Max isn't or Will or and I agree with you on the 11 thing, but we already know they're going to do spinoffs, and they said like they've promised, and to a certain extent I think I believe them, that these iterations of these characters are gone because I think they all want to be done. And clearly Millie Bobby Brown, like you can see her in interviews, she's like, I'm fucking done with this show. But that doesn't mean that like there can't be a kid that shows up in a new version of Stranger Things set in the 90s and the kid's name is like, Elle, and it's actually Mike and Eleven's kid or something. You never see Mike or Eleven, but you realize that's her parents or something. So I don't think Eleven's going to die. I think that one's the most obvious, and I think that's why it's not going to happen. Steve, Max, and Will are my guesses.
Yeah, those are decent guesses. It's funny, so many people guess Steve, and I'm like, geez, for somebody we love so much, you know how Stranger Things plays. They don't kill people you love, so it's weird that everybody's guessing Steve. But I'm like, okay, I don't give a shit about the Steve Nancy relationship. That's just me. I really don't care. I do agree, Jonathan feels useless. It would make sense if his final act is to be useful and die. And I don't mean that in a crass way. I mean that like, let me finally contribute to this show in a big way by sacrificing myself. I think that would be a redemption for the way that they've shaped that character. And I'd actually root for that over Steve just for that reason, to be like, hey, like I know I've kind of been a drag on this show for a while, so let me give you a reason to go. I'm so glad we got Jonathan all the way to the end.
Yeah, and maybe, like I said, maybe that's the way they're going to go and make him actually kind of have use, because through now he hasn't really had a lot of use. Like Jonathan,
Look like
it's kind
stoner
of,
Luke Skywalker. Congratulations.
what's kind of crazy is, like, I think everyone liked Jonathan in season one. He was kind of like the sympathetic, kind of down on his luck brother. His brother's missing, his family's
Yeah.
poor, all that kind of shit. And Steve was a bully. Like, Steve was an asshole bully. And so everyone kind of like, oh, we like Jonathan. But then by season two, man, the change happened. Like, people realized, like, oh, Steve's kind of dorky and charming, and Jonathan is just kind of boring. So we like Steve. We don't like Jonathan. So
Typical.
whether it's Jonathan or Steve, I think one of them is going to have to die. One of them is going to have to die before it's all over, because Nancy like they showed very clearly they're still very much competing for Nancy's affection and attention, and even Jonathan realizes that by this season. So one of them is going to die. Got to believe one of them is going to die. They are not going to be a threesome for the rest of their lives. I don't think that's going to happen.
Or they are. I mean, listen, the world is different these days. We could just thruple this up.
We're going to change it from Stranger Things to Freaky Things is what's going to be. Patrick, we're not really doing traditional categories because we're not even to the end of the show. We will do like best performance, our favorite storyline, whatever.
Yeah, we'll wrap it all up in the end.
But I'm curious, like, when you talk about who on this in this first first 4 episodes of the final season, what character do you identify with the most in terms of like who they are, who they become, and their ideology going into this final season? Like, who do you identify with the most? Who do you agree with the most on this show through the first 4 episodes?
I think I still, I think I really, because of where I'm at in my life, Hopper makes the most sense to me. Hopper's got a kid who wants to be bigger than themselves. That's the story of every parent. It's like your kid gets to an age where they just go, "Yeah, I want to be like an adult all the way. Like I want to have more responsibility than I need." I think the theme of Hopper throughout the first 4 episodes of this volume is just like, "Hey, kid, like slow down, slow down." Not I also I'm not sure you're ready, and I'm not sure you can see how big the stakes are. I know you're capable, but you're also my kid, and I can't just be okay with you jumping into the fire. Like, I have to protect you. I'm your dad. That's my job. So just because I'm a dad, I relate to Hopper more than anybody else in this volume in particular. There's a couple other characters that I do relate to, but I was like, in terms of just like dyed in the wool ethos, like I think me and Hopper line up very well.
I've always liked Hopper's character, and obviously, I think that's probably one of the more popular characters on Stranger Things. For me, just watching this first 4 episodes, the character I identify with the most, and it's not really about like their ideology, because like I think it's clear like what they want also, because everyone's kind of working towards the same goal, at least with our core characters. But it's Dustin. It's Dustin's defiance.
That was the other character I feel about.
Dustin's defiance, especially in that first episode when he shows up to school wearing the Hellfire Club t-shirt. Everyone's like, "Oh, Eddie's a murderer," and he's like, "Fuck y'all. I know who Eddie was. He was a good dude. He was my friend." And I saw Gaten Matarazzo, the guy who plays Dustin, talk about this, and he said everyone loved the bromance between Steve and Dustin. Like, they just unlikely friends who became friends, and like everyone loves that relationship. Like when he came back in season 3 and he goes to Scoops Ahoy and they're buddies,
Yeah.
they're doing like the secret handshake. Everyone loved that, and I agree. It was kind of cool. It was a cool little twist on making Steve still part of the show, even though he wasn't with Nancy anymore. But then one thing that Gaten said in an interview, and I was like, "You're right." He's like, "Remember at the end of season 3 when Dustin wants to get the girl, and Steve tells him the secret of hairspray, and he gets his hair all done up, and he goes to dance, and he's like trying to be Steve 2.0 as Dustin." And it doesn't work out too well for him, but like, Steve's trying to like, "Hey, here, man, here's some advice how you can kind of fix yourself." He said the difference between Steve and Eddie was Eddie accepted Dustin for who he was. Didn't need to change a thing. You're a dorky D&D kid, be a dorky D&D kid. I'm not going to change you at all. And he's like, I think there was something a little more accepting about Eddie's relationship with Dustin. Like, Dustin didn't have to change who he was. He didn't want to change who he was around Eddie. Eddie was like his best friend and the closest person to who Dustin really was. So that was the one that connected to me the most, because when he shows up wearing that shirt in defiance, he sticks the fucking snake in the asshole's locker and says Hellfire forever or whatever. That's some shit I would have done. Like, that's some shit I would have totally done. And also, like, if you think about it, like, Dustin's kind of had like a good head on his shoulders. Like, outside of getting Dart, the demo dog that became the demo dog, and not knowing what it was. Outside of that, like, he's had some good ideas. He's been an integral part of the story and like the solution to every season. And I like the character arc, because he's kind of like he's very much like the damaged emo boy a little bit. You know, like, everyone's had that season. Like, Will's had that. Mike's had that. Lucas has had that to a certain extent. This is kind of like Dustin's emo season, because he's sad his friend is dead and they all blame him for killing Chrissy, and he knows full well he didn't. And no one else believes it. So, and then when he shows back up, like, he's almost like defiant. Like, when Steve is kind of giving him shit, he's almost like, Steve, shut the fuck up and just do what I tell you. Like, you're not smart enough to figure this out. I figured it out. Shut up and just follow my lead. And you know, so I kind of like Dustin in that way. Like, and he's very purpose driven now, because like Vecna killed Eddie. He's like, I'm going to fucking kill this dude. I'm going to rip Vecna's heart out and put it on a platter. I kind of like that metal, like, full on metal Dustin. So that would be mine.
Yeah, Dustin was the other character I really related to, because he's sort of over this shit. And I feel that, and like his frustration with everybody, where he's like, stop talking. Just listen to what I fucking say. It'll be much faster if I just give the direction and you do it. Like, that's another very relatable, like, father moment for me, where I'm like, just don't make me explain myself. Have I steered you wrong yet? Just fucking do it.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here, Patrick, and I'm sure you've seen, I know you're not big on reading stuff before the season comes out. I'm sure you've seen some stuff since then, where the Duffer Brothers have said very, like, specifically, like, they always knew what the final shot would be. They've had that idea since, I think they said season 2. They knew what the final frame would be. Much like, you know, Lost, I know they said they knew where it would end with Jack. I'm not going to spoil the show for everyone else, but they knew where that final shot would be. But knowing the final shot does not mean you know the actual story.
Yeah.
Now, they said they've been plotting towards this final since, like, basically, because when they made season 1, they didn't even know the show would get picked up for season 2. So they really, I understand that, like, not really knowing, because you're like, well, fuck, this could be one and done. Like, they could put it on, no one watches it, and we're never going to make another season, and Stranger Things just kind of falls off into the ether. But once it became a pop culture phenomenon, they're like, well, shit, we got to come up with more ideas. So I'm fine with that. But they've said they have an end game in mind. This is where they were working towards. Do we actually believe that? Do we actually believe the Duffer Brothers had an end game in mind? And here's why I say I don't think they did. Vecna introduced last season the twist that he was one. He was the first person that Papa, that Dr. Brenner ever experimented on with powers and all. I love that twist. That was actually a really cool twist last season, when you figure out that Henry Creel, it was Henry Creel is one is Vecna. I loved that. That was like one of my favorite parts of last season, realizing that, like, he was the one pulling the strings the entire time, and his connection back to Dr. Brenner. I loved all that. I'd go as far as say I loved all that. But the kid thing, kidnapping kids, that's suddenly his goal. That doesn't feel like you had this planned. This feels like you needed a plot for the final season, and you decided, you know what would be cool? We're going to kidnap Holly. We're going to kidnap these kids, put kids in peril, because our actual actors are no longer kids. They're fucking like 30 years old. So we got to put some kids in peril. We got to get back to the core of the story, where Will was in peril in season 1. Now, maybe, and I'm not placing full judgment yet, when we get into the second chapter and then the second volume, and then obviously the finale on New Year's Eve, we may learn exactly what he's doing with these children. Is it like a Matrix battery situation where they're like powering his powers and he's gaining strength through the children? Is he planning on creating his own upside down utopia where he's going to take these like weak-minded children and mold them and shape them in his image, so like the kids that come out are not, I don't know, assholes? I don't know what he's trying to shape them to be, but like he's going to shape them and he's going to create his own world in the upside down and then close off the gates, and they're all going to live over there like one big weird happy family. I don't know. So maybe when they get there, when they land the plane, I can come back and say, yeah, they had an idea. But right now, 4 episodes in, and this is a whole new twist that he's kidnapping children. And I know they kidnapped Will in season 1. I get it, but Will escaped. So I guess my point is it doesn't feel like this was the end game to me.
Oh, I don't think this was the end game at all. I mean, obviously their original Bible had to change because of the popularity, but the end game, and I still believe this to be true, Damon. The end game is that in a few years, whether it's 5 or 10 or however many years, whoever survives is coming back for yet another season of Stranger Things. They're going to do it chapter 2. That will happen, and they will be adults. They will no longer be cosplaying as high schoolers. They will be adults, and they will be coming back to Hawkins to figure it all out one more time. I guarantee you that's happening. I guarantee you that was the original end game all along. You'll get adult Millie Bobby Brown or whatever, whatever they're going to do, they're going to give you that. But in terms of like the show, Vecna's plan feels very tacked on. It just does. And I don't even know that Vecna was a plan back in season 1. I really don't. I think back in season 1 it was like cosmic beasts. Okay, however that's going to work out, we'll figure that out, but there's like a cosmic something or other happening back there. But our focus is really these kids. And then as it grew, and then season 4 really got high marks because everybody loved Vecna, they were like, okay, cool. So it's Vecna now. Like Vecna's the focus now. That's how it feels to me. I can't speak for the Duffer Brothers. Just as a viewer, it feels like Vecna was a Hail Mary pass and it worked and they had touchdown. They got it. So no, I don't think they had a big end game in plan other than to find a way to get them back together as adults. I really do. And whatever the final shot is, that I believe they had that final shot in mind a long time ago because when I write stories, I really don't feel like I've got anything figured out until I've got the end. Like I'm working on a new idea right now, and when I realized what the end of the movie was, I was like, bang, now I know where to go. Like from there, like now I just need to get to that. So I believe that for sure. But how you get to that could go one of many different directions. You lose an actor, strikes happen, pandemics happen, and you have to make changes and adjustments the entire time. And the show kind of feels that way. The show kind of feels like how long can we string you along till we get to that final shot? Because we know how that final shot's going to play out. Now I just think they have all the weapons at their disposal. Now they have Vecna. Now they have Will's powers. Now they have 8. Now they have 11. Now they have the power of love, Damon. We can do a lot of things right now. And I mean, obviously they have this all shot and ready to go and on a silver platter for us. We can only guess what's coming in the next volume. But I do think we're going to get a satisfying conclusion. I really do. I just think most of the people will survive because I do believe the true end game is that you will see them as adults in another season somewhere down the line.
And I think, like to your point about Vecna, I don't believe that was always in their plan. I think they always had the plan of like introducing a bigger bad. But I think the way they did that, introduced Vecna as Henry Creel and introduced him as one, was perfect. It was like literally like one of the best storylines they came up with. And I was like, great. And you're right, it was a Hail Mary, but it fucking worked. And I don't care if it was never planned because it worked really, really well. And that's the key, right? Like when you do this, when you say you have a plan, you don't really have a plan. As long as it works. But here's the thing. Like when you watch, and I understand Stranger Things is a different kind of phenomenon, but I'm going to compare this to 3 shows that had very controversial, or not controversial, 3 huge shows that all had finales that all got varying degrees of love or hate. When you watch The Sopranos, to me is the greatest television show ever made. Like when people ask me what's your favorite TV show of all time, I name like 4 shows. I'm like, oh well, The Sopranos, but it's on its own category because it will never be topped. It is the greatest piece of television ever made. Writing, acting, it is perfect, and I love The Sopranos. The big question at the end of The Sopranos going into the final season was, will Tony make it? Will Tony live, die, or get arrested? That was like the key because Tony Soprano was the lead character. And when the ending happened, sorry I'm spoiling The Sopranos like 20 years later, it kind of just fades to black and you don't know. Now, at the time, people were like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? Did Tony die? Did he live? Like, what happened? And there's been a million explanations about what it was, but over time, people have kind of come to appreciate that ending. Because it was almost like make up your own adventure. Like, maybe he made it, maybe he didn't. Like, we don't know. I actually really liked it. Like, at the time, even I was like, what the fuck? And then over time, I've come to love that. I mentioned Breaking Bad. What was this? What was the main plot in Breaking Bad from season 1 to the end? Will Walter White get caught? And what happens when he does get caught? Because eventually he's going to be found out. You knew that from day one he was going to be found out. What's going to happen? The way that Vince Gilligan and those guys did that, and they got to the finale of the end of Walter White, was pitch perfect. One of the greatest series finales of all time. I don't know if you're a big Breaking Bad guy. I am.
Oh yeah.
One of the best series finales of all time. But you knew where they were going. Will Tony make it? Who's going to discover? How is Walter White going to get discovered? And what happens to him? We knew that through line the entire time. With Stranger Things, it just doesn't feel like we have. Like, we know the end goal is Vecna now. Vecna has to die, so we know that. Yes, that. I think the problem is when I talk about the end game, the plan, quote unquote. It doesn't feel like they knew how to get there, so they had to introduce this new thing. Because last season he was taking kids who dealt with trauma and tormenting them, almost like Pennywise. And then snaps them, breaks them, and feeds off of that power when he killed Chrissy, when he killed the other kid with the glasses, and what he was doing to Max. That all made sense. He's like taking these tormented kids and basically feeding off of them. Cool. I'm fine with that. This whole new thing of like kidnapping children and plugging them into the Matrix, I'm just like, can we just stick with one thing? Like, make it where he's just still going after kids and killing them. And I think that'd be pretty brutal. Imagine... not Will, because Will survived, but imagine, like the kids, like Holly, like little Holly. I know it's a kid. Like, imagine if you just twist up and pretzel little Holly, and you're like, oh shit, like you're not playing now, because it's still the same plan they had with Vecna last season. Now, this new threat is like, huh? I'm not saying I hate it, because we don't know how it's going to play out. This could totally redeem itself by the end of the season. I just don't know, like, it doesn't feel like they had that in mind. Like that, okay, we're going to use Vecna to twist and kill these tormented kids. Oh, and then next season we're going to have him kidnap kids and use them as batteries. I don't think that was ever ever in the planning. They're just like, how do we keep Vecna relevant without just leading into this giant final battle? That's the way I feel.
Yeah, and it really makes you think that like their final image has something to do with the core kids. It has nothing to do with Vecna. That's if they've had that image since season 2, they didn't have Vecna in season 2, and I doubt they even sniffed what Vecna was in season 2. So the final image has something to do with the kids. I guarantee it. It was always about them. And so Vecna is just an aside to that. Like how do we use Vecna to get to that scene is really what it's all about. So yes, he is maybe we'll see how it shakes out. One of the world's or history's greatest, television's greatest improvs that worked out. Where it's like, what if we have this character we've wanted Pennywise? Why don't we just make a Pennywise character and see how it goes? They did it and it worked, and so we'll see if it shakes out right. But I think in the end, it will be about the core kids. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know where they're going. Obviously, we're leading towards the big finale, which is going to be 11 versus Vecna. We already know that's where it's going. I'm fine with knowing that, by the way. And obviously, you just got to give us enough story in between there to keep us going. You got to go for 8 episodes. You got to give us conclusions for all the characters and all the storylines you've opened this entire time. Once again, I'm fine with all that. And listen, it's television. Like, I loved the vast majority of Game of Thrones. There were definitely filler episodes of Game of Thrones where I'm like, what are we doing here? Why is this part of the story? What's going on here? Oh, we need 10 episodes. That's why we're doing this. And even Game of Thrones, like as time went on, and that was the other series I want to talk about. Like it felt like they didn't know where to go in that series. Like they're like, oh, we kind of, here's what we're going to do. And it almost felt like and then they rushed to the ending. Like you could tell like David Benioff and Dan Weiss were like, we just want to get the fuck out of here. We don't want to be in Croatia 8 months out of the year. We're done. Here's your finale. Fuck off. And that's very much what Game of Thrones felt like at the end. It felt like there was very little thought put into that final season, in my opinion. I just hope Stranger Things doesn't follow a similar suit. Like, we're just going to throw shit at the wall and hope it works. It worked with Vecna, you're right. And I agree. I don't think that was ever in the planning from season 1. But boy, did it work in season 4, and it worked out well. Like, you created an iconic villain. A human-looking villain, not the Mind Flayer who looks like a big cloud. You've created a big villain. Worked perfectly. As long as the end game pays off, we know Vecna's going to die. There's no chance in the world that doesn't happen. Just like we knew Vader was going to be defeated in Star Wars and the Emperor is going to get defeated in Star Wars. I'm not saying you can't have the happy ending, but just give it a satisfying conclusion. And I don't know that this kid battery plan is really any part of that.
It might not be. It might be a throwaway. It might be a diversion, or just a way to kind of a bottle Vecna into some intention. Like, oh well, I have to battery all these kids. So like it's just a way to kind of contain him so he doesn't spread too far. Like he's got to have a plan, something to keep him in place. Because something that powerful really could do whatever the fuck he wants, but he seems to be fixated on sucking kids for some reason.
That sounds really dirty the way you just said that. Real quick before we get out of here, can I ask this question? I like Vecna, by the way. It's a very cool character. I like Vecna very much. I have a Vecna action figure sitting over my shoulder every year. I love Vecna. Vecna has immense power, just like 11 does. This is such a weird criticism, but I just thought of this. Well, I thought of it last night, but I was like thinking about it right now. So Vecna comes out of the Upside Down, very much like a Vader moment. He pulls open the Upside Down, he crawls out. You're like, oh shit, Vecna's here. All the soldiers are firing guns at him, and he just gets shot a million times, and then just wipes out the soldiers. You know, does the telepathy, or does the the fucking movie shit, and everyone goes flying. At one point though, he does the Groot arm, where he does like
yes,
his arm extends out like a tree branch, and he Groots somebody, kills him that way. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just like, why didn't they go the extra step with Vecna to show how truly badass he is, to just fully rip off the Matrix and have him just stop the bullets? I thought that would have been like, all these soldiers are firing, he's just like, whoop. Nope.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much random gunfire, and it just continuously gunfires at him. I'm almost like, imagine if he just puts up his hand, all the guns, like all the bullets just drop, and the soldiers are like, oh fuck, we're fucked. Because we can't even fire at him now. I think that would have been a cooler, like, showing the power of Vecna than him, grooting his way through the soldiers and like killing with the weird branch arms and shit. I'm just like, Neo this shit. Show him the power. So like you're just like, whoop, nope, no bullets are gonna get to me, motherfuckers. And then then the Demogorgons come in and wipe everybody. I think that would have been cooler. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of it was an amalgamation of a few different things. It was kind of Darth Vader, it was kind of Groot, and it's kind of badass. He's all beefed up and more powerful than last time. Why he's more powerful, I don't know. We're gonna find out why.
Yeah. So, Stranger Things Volume 1 is out now. Stranger Things Final Season Volume 1 is out there now on Netflix, which is why we went full spoilers, because by the time this episode drops to our normal listening audience, it's going to be basically a week since the release. So you've had plenty of time to watch, which is why we warned you up front about spoilers. We are going to be doing 2 more Stranger Things episodes, because December's kind of a slow month for movies anyway, so it kind of worked out perfectly, because we're like, what are we going to review? Stranger Things. That's a pop culture phenomenon, and it tinges just enough on horror that it worked for us. So Christmas Day is the next 3 episodes of Stranger Things final season. We will all be like open presents and Stranger Things. So that is that. We'll have that episode, and then obviously the very following week will be the Stranger Things series finale that drops on New Year's Eve. So we will have 2 more Stranger Things episodes coming before it's all said and done. And then we can totally place judgment and say, did we like it? Did we love it? Did we hate it? How did it end? With that being said, if you want early access to these episodes, don't forget patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. You can get this episode and all of our episodes, as well as our It Welcome to Derry series that is only on Patreon right now. We're doing that week to week, and we'll be doing it through the series, or to the season finale. I don't know if there's going to be another season, but we're going to do it through the season finale this year on Patreon, so make sure and join us there. Find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead, and you'll find us over there. Or go to the website, rewindofTheLivingDead.com. You'll find our podcast along with a million other things, articles and trailers and reviews and all kinds of other cool shit. Check us out over there. You got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, or you just want to follow along with everything else we're doing besides just the podcast? Find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You can find us over there. And if you got questions you want to send us via email, you can do that. rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That is rotlivingdead@gmail.com. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, for everyone that tunes in. We'll be back next week with a movie-centric episode. Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.